is if any what are some life experiences that have contributed or influenced the sound?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, so the book is set, you guys read bits of it, right?
Yes.
So the neighborhood Dickens. You guys have heard of Compton?
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was young, there was a parade called the Watts Parade. It was like a parade that they kind of had like in, not a celebration, but in memory of a big riot that they had in 1965. So my mom used to drive me and my sisters up there. So we would drive down there. You would go down a couple streets and you had to kind of go through Compton to get to Watts. And you would see black people on horseback, going to the store, doing all this stuff. Never really thought about it. It's a little weird, okay. It's all right. But then my sister and one of my best friends is a principal in Compton. So I drive to see him. You would see people grazing their cows and their goats, in the medians underneath the those big kind of triangle power line things, all this kind of stuff. It's like, what's up with the livestock in Compton? So I just started asking my sister about it. And she said, like sometimes she teaches 4th grade. And she said, like, sometimes in the morning the kids will bring milk that they've bought from the cow next door. That's their milk. Like, they don't buy milk in the carton. They buy it next door. And this was just really strange to me, even though it's California. And California still has like a lot of remnants of the Old West, like if you really look. And then so that's not like my life, but that's just like a thing that was like, I gotta kind of try to bring this neighborhood to life. I mean, it's exaggerated in the book, but there are things about Compton and that one part of Compton that even people in Los Angeles don't know anything about. So that's part of it. And then some of the characters in the book, you guys know Marpessa?
Mm-hmm.
She's like a mix of my sister, my second sister, my friend Toy's sister, and then my wife. She's like a mix of those 3 people. I mean, like the events, none of the events, I love the Little Rascals. You guys don't even know what the Little Rascals are.
Yes, we do.
I grew up watching the Little Rascals, and all that stuff is really important to me. It's hard, it's not like my life, obviously, but they're little memories and things that I've been thinking about for a long time that I kind of stuffed in that book. Thank you.
Great question. All right, so I'm told you have an orator and someone is next.
What gave you the idea that intensifying racism would bring Dickens together?
Intensifying racism. That's a good question, actually. I don't know if you guys hear this, but ever since I can remember, at some point, somebody was always saying, "Oh, black people were better off under segregation. We had this, we had our own businesses, we had our own this, we had our own that." Anybody ever hear this?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, what would that look like now? And I never believe it when everybody goes, "Oh, back in our day we did this." I just never believe that. But now, up then, that's all. But I got really curious about that notion of like what segregation would look like in a contemporary context. Like, how could you do it? And if you think about it, he never segregates anything. Like, he doesn't do, nothing really changes, just puts up some signs. People start acting different. And some of it is just, that notion of, that some people feel like people of color behave better when there's a white person in front, is the boss, than there's a black person. Some people think that. Some people do act like that. So it's just about that notion, like what would these thoughts, what would living they're not living in segregation, but just under the precept of segregation. Like, how would that change people? And then part of it is, in that book, you have a character like Hominy who feeds off of it in a different way. He kind of likes the hatred. And then you have, the neighborhood, which is this idea that it kind of gives them an identity. We're different than this other place next door. We're different from another place. It's not so much that they've been segregated, but they're like, we've got to make use of what we have, you know? And there builds in a little kind of like with the little, did you guys read the bit about the fake white school that they're building next to the real school?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not a real school. And I think at some level the characters know that, but it gives them this thing of, this idea of what they're up against. And it just kind of forces them to just kind of pay attention. I'm going to tell you a weird story. I don't know why I'm telling it. Well, when I got to college, I went to college in Boston. And the first kid I met, who I'm actually still friends now, was with a white kid. His name was Kevin Varian. Kevin, you know, we were both from like very working class backgrounds. He was from Jersey. I'm from Los Angeles. And then one day he came back to the dorm room and he said, because we were, you know, a little intimidated. He came back and goes, these kids ain't that smart. They just do the reading. That always stuck with me. You know, but it was just him kind of like trying to build up his own defenses a little. And in some ways, there's sometimes, you know, even if it's oppressive or discriminatory, sometimes that can foster a certain kind of unity. It's not necessarily positive, but it can foster a certain kind of community. It's a very good question.
Okay, who's next over there?
You write about segregating the Dickens Middle School.
What do you guys have these questions
Oh,
written
we
on?
wrote down our, we have our questions on it.
That's some old stock ticker tape. I don't know what the heck you guys have.
They're conserving paper. Very good. And you know what? Tell us your name when you ask the question.
Right.
I'm Marat.
You write about segregating the Dickens Middle School as satire, but would you advocate separatism in real life, and what would be the benefits in terms of
Would I advocate it? I don't know. Maybe there's a situation. I mean, sometimes people say, oh, you've got to separate the boys from the girls. They do better. I don't know. You know, I just, I don't think like any of these decisions are, you know, they apply to everybody and they apply in all circumstances. Like I'm by no means like a pro-segregationist. I'm not. You know, if I think about my own education, you know, I grew up like, when we were young, we grew up like in an all-white neighborhood called Santa Monica. You know, we lived there for a long time, and we moved to Los Angeles to a kind of an integrated neighborhood, but we went to an all-black school, which was really different for us, you know. And then I went to, like, when I first started high school, I went to an mostly black high school. And then me and a friend, to play basketball, we were bused out to an all-white school. And so it wasn't like, one of the things I noticed when we went to the all-white school, one, it looked like a college campus, and it's in Los Angeles, a public school. And we were just shocked, like, how different the resources those kids had. But the other thing that was really different, this is actually kind of similar in the book, I never thought about this. This is back to your thing, actually, a little bit, that I hadn't even thought about till now. Was one of the things I noticed is going there, one of the things, at least for me, I went, oh, these white kids ain't that smart. You know, I'm twice as smart as most of them. You know, it just was a thing that I had to know and I had to acknowledge. But it wasn't about the integration per se. It was about just the fact that I was exposed to it. You know, I was going to say something else and I forgot. But the other thing that was different is that those teachers had a different expectation of those kids. You know, like you could just feel it. It was just so different. And it was before this book came out, but I had actually met a friend of mine, a white kid, who had gone to junior high and a high school with us, mostly black environment. And him and I were talking about it, and he was telling me it was interesting to hear his perception of it. And one, I just always thought like he was a black kid in a weird way, but you know, he obviously felt a certain way. Anyways, but he was talking about how him and the other white teachers would just talk about the black kids. You know, like they had their own little team, you know, and that really flipped me out. So I don't know if I'm answering your question necessarily, but yeah, I'm not for it or against it necessarily. I mean, I think different things work for different people, you know. But so much of it is, I mean, yeah, money, but it is about the heart that the teachers have for you. I mean, when I think about teachers that were important to me, is for whatever reason they picked me up and looked after me. And, I mean, there's a ton of those people, you know. And it's not about mixing the races or something like that. But it's going to make you, no.
My name is Demetria Hander, and my question is, what do you think is integration's biggest disappointment?
Integration's biggest disappointment. Oh. Yeah, I mean, I don't really think of the world like that, really. You know, like I don't say this led to this. I think there's just so many factors involved. I mean, one of the things is the notion that things are actually integrated is one of the notions. You know, I mean. You know, I think oftentimes, you know, we get this sense of, oh, you know, we let you people sit in the bus counter, we let you people go to the beach. What do you complain about? I don't know how to, it's a good question. I don't really even know how to begin to answer it. I mean, I think one of the things, it's built this false sense of a level playing field, you know, that everybody has the same opportunities, everybody can go to the same places, everybody has equal access, you just have to work hard and all this, and that's all bullshit, you know? So I think part of that is this notion that integration, civil rights kind of solved all these problems, you know? And that for me was an interesting thing with that book, was the idea of, well, let's do the opposite and see if that works, you know? Just not as a true experiment, just as a thought experiment almost, you know? It's like, what if the wrong thing actually worked, then what, you know? So, yeah, I don't like have like integration failed X, Y, and Z. I don't really, I'm not like a political person or a policy person necessarily. For me, it's just about the stuff I just see myself as an observer.
A pretty keen observer, I'd say. Next question.
You answered it already. My name is Ryan. The question is resegregation something that you people believe in to be a good idea?
No, not really necessarily. It might be, you know. But I mean, there's things. I mean, it's part of like why people started charter schools. You know, it's in a way of segregation one population of kids from another population. You know, about whether I believe in it or not, I don't know. But it's, you know, there's a line in the book where they're in school and they're talking about all the segregation that already happens within the school. We have ESL, we have all this. You know, we have all this. I mean, it's kind of part of our educational method. You know. These kids are supposed to be with these kids are supposed to be with these kids. You know, so, you know, I'm not an educator. You know, I don't have the stats and all this stuff to support these kind of claims. You know. But for me, it's so much more about access than who's in the borders of the campus. You know.
What do you think personally is better for black people, integration or separation?
I mean, there's nothing that's good for all of us in here, you know? All of us have different needs, different wants, different demands, you know? I have like some Jewish friends, and they always say, well, is that good for the Jews or bad for the Jews? I don't really think like that, you know? I think there are policies. Look, I think Trump is bad for everybody, right? I think Trump is especially bad for people of color, for poor people, you know? I think like that, but in terms of how do you counter all that stuff and like this is good and bad, I don't have like these answers. I mean, we had Obama in the White House. Was Obama good for black people? Did he solve like these day-to-day things? I don't know, but like maybe he's good for, like one of the things that I think about is like what does Obama's presence do for somebody that's, you know, 10 years old when he first comes into office? What's it like going from 10 to 18 with a black president? You know, that's like something I can't even begin to fathom, like how that would change my perception of the country or my perception of possibility. You know, I don't know necessarily.
Hi, my name is Juanasia, and did you feel like making this book was going to make a difference in people's perspective? And if so, what did you think the outcome would be?
That's another good question. Yeah, I don't write to change anyone's mind. You know, I don't. I just that's more than I can take on, like just as a person. You know, but I think if I write something and it makes someone think, maybe makes someone see something differently. Because often, you know, somebody changes their mind and they only change their mind for a week or 2 days. You know, and then they're back to whoever they were, you know. Why are you not? Do you agree with that? Or you know, so I'm not, I don't have like this set way that I see the world. I have my things that I believe and don't believe, but I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I don't think there's anything in that book that's saying life should be like this. Not for me. But part of that book is about the way we talk about these things, the way we perceive these things. That for me is the interesting stuff, not like to try to lay down some doctrine or some manifesto.
All right, so my name is Anaya Jones, and you seem cynical about the power of being woke when you write Momo's father. So did you experience any pressure in your past of being woke or conscious?
Say the first part again, I'm sorry.
You seem cynical about the power of being woke when you write Momo's father. So did you experience any pressure in your past of being woke or conscious?
Pressure? No, not at all. But so for me it was interesting when people were conscious and when they weren't conscious. So one of my best friends with the family was the Keatons. They were from Chicago and they had moved to LA when the boys were in junior high. And their parents were very radical, woke. This is in the 70s. So I always remember they used to have this little framed sign. I don't remember exactly. But it was something like black male, black ball, black magic, all these kind of negative black things. And at the bottom it said white lies. I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. But then I remember I can't remember why, but they had some white people coming in to their apartment. And this is the most radical family, and they took that sign down, because they didn't want them to see it. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? This is Mr. and Mrs. Keaton. Y'all don't back down from anybody. But there was just this thing of the decisions that people make and when. So there was a guy, you guys aren't going to know who I'm talking about, but he was a black neoconservative. He just used to talk this yang all the time. You poor black people, y'all should be doing this. Y'all aren't doing this. Y'all aren't doing this. But that was his rhetoric. That was his thinking. And then, I don't know, at some point in his legacy, he was getting kind of famous, but he got caught sniffing cocaine, you know what I mean? Doing all the stuff that he was telling people they shouldn't be doing. And so I just realized there's always all these hypocrisies and contradictions. And I had to think about, do those cancel out what someone's saying because they did, a behavior that goes against what they're saying? Or, so for me, it's just never one thing, So it's not like a dismissal of being conscious. I don't think that. But it is a cynicism. But it's not just it's a cynicism of being conscious, but it's a cynicism also about being unconscious too, or about being unwoke. That was a very good question.
All right, who's next?
My name is Zoriel Harris Scott. Here's my question. Did you ever feel like when you were woke to the world around you, that you were too late to even make a difference in the environment around you?
Yeah, it's interesting about this notion of being woke. For me, these things come in varying degrees. So I don't know what woke is, when I'll be woke. I don't know. I feel like I've done enough reading, and I don't see myself as a change agent. It's I'm not out here trying to change stuff. I'm just out here trying to tell stories that I think are funny, stories that hopefully are smart and somehow different, somehow unique. But I'm not trying to reshape the world into a place that I want it to be necessarily. So, but part of that, the thing that you think about, when I was younger, I thought about these things about what's changed, what do I want to do with change, and some of it's just for me and my friends when we were more politically active than we were. And so my decision to do it was, I want to write about these things that I think about. Another friend, he became a pastor, and that was the way that he stayed involved. So it's just to different degrees.
All right, who's next?
My name is Sam Shaw. What do you think is a bigger problem, white cops killing black people or black people killing white people?
Yeah, a death is a death, the thing is, with police killing black people, these are the people that are supposed to be protecting you. This is the system devaluing your life, which is different than your neighbors or, some people that you don't know. These are people who are in place to protect you, and, that's like the army turning against you. You know what I mean? And so that's a huge difference. It's not just about the act of somebody killing you, and then killing you and then not having to suffer any consequences on top of it, So I mean, I don't know, it depends what you mean by bigger, That can mean a ton of things. If it's numbers, that's one thing, but if it's, an impact or a statement about how people feel about you as a citizen, those are two different things.
All right, who's next? These are great questions, thoughtful answers.
I have a question. So earlier you mentioned that basically you just write the stories to be funny. So
Not just to be funny.
Or to be funny, or just give us your experiences. So like the messages that you were like giving to us, were they done by mistake?
No. I mean, that's the beauty of reading, is you read and you get to interpret what that book means or doesn't mean to you. You get, like, I'm not thinking about you when I'm writing the book. Like, this is what was your name again?
Anaya.
This is what Anaya needs. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? For me, is I'm trying to, like, expand my own space to express myself. So one of the things, like, I'm old now. So when I meet writers that are in their 40s, who started reading me when they were in their 20s or something, or 18, writers in their 30s, oftentimes black writers. One of the things, they come up, there was a guy, his named John King, he came up to me and said, "Oh man, I had to thank you. I can't believe 20 years I've always wanted to thank you for doing what you do." And I was like, "Why are you thanking me?" He goes, "Because you kind of just wrote without having to go, as a black writer, I have to pay attention to this. I have to pay attention to this. I have to do this. I have to see the world from this way." Like in these, I'm going to use the word positive. It's not the word I actually want to use, but just with a certain kind of outlook. And that just wasn't interesting to me. I think there are just so many things. And part of it is, for me, is to show like a different kind of brilliance that black people have that you never, ever, ever, ever see. And that's one of the things that's really important for me. When I think about how smart my friends is, how smart my mom is, and you just don't see that. It's like when you see black characters, even in things that are done by African Americans, their fundamental quality is just that they're black, to me sometimes, I think. And so for me, there's just this wide range of behavior and attitude and stuff that I want to try to show. It's not about a message necessarily. I think they were pretty proud of it, actually. I don't talk with them about what I do, really. It's very embarrassing. When my grandmother was alive,